Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Yollab Central. Today I have with me Jackie. So Jackie, would you like to tell our audience why they should be excited about this conversation today?
Great. Yes. I'm a very creative individual. My name is Jackie Pelegrin, and I reside in Arizona. So those of your listeners and viewers that reside in Arizona, hopefully fellow Arizonans here. And I currently do different things. So I work as an instructional designer in higher education. So I help create really good curriculum and content. And then I teach college classes in the evening online. And so I take what I do day in and day out and I teach the next generation of instructional designers. So I get to actually see that kind of play out in action. So it's really fun to do that. And then I am a fellow podcaster as well. So I have my podcast called Designing with Love, and it's an educational podcast for my students, but it actually has grown since then to include more than just my students as my audience. So that's expanded out. And it also gave me the idea to write a book. So I'm writing my first book too. So I'm kind of dipping my feet into different creative
Yeah.
pursuits, and so it's really fun. Yes.
Okay, so let's start with instructional design, right? I think
Yes.
am I, yeah. So, so for the uninitiated, could you just tell us what you do and basically what it is all about?
You're right. Yeah. So instructional design is a field that is growing and it's changing, but it's based on different models and theories where what we try to do is we try to help ensure that what the uh, what the subject matter experts or what the individuals, the stakeholders, what they want to have see happen, what their outcomes are for the learners, that we come alongside them and we make that happen. So we become a partner with them and we work with them to try to ensure that we make things that are instructionally sound and evidence based. And so that way it's not just some flashy course that goes out there and doesn't really do anything for the learner. So we might try to make sure things are aligned, that we create objectives that are measurable, and that they have activities that align with that. So it's all about making sure that students or learners have the best experience possible whenever they're taking a course or training or anything like that. That we make sure that it's instructionally sound and that we give the faculty and the trainers or facilitators what they need to be successful. So yeah.
Okay, now based on what I gathered, right? Now this is a field, as far as I understand, is subject agnostic, as in you could be doing instructional design for any kind of subject, right? Uh, be it management or say physics. I don't know. It could be something on that side, I guess. Uh,
Right. Yeah.
so to understand, right? How do you? I mean, do you have to necessarily be an expert in the subject itself? Based on my understanding, no. But then how do you actually get into different subjects or different fields and then decide that these are the right metrics or this is what students should be learning about or this would make a nice curriculum, something of that sort?
Yes. That's a great question. I love that because that's a question I get asked sometimes too, is do you have to know all of the subjects? Because for example, in my position, I teach or I I'm sorry, not teach, but I am an instructional designer in the College of Humanities and Social Sciences. So I help develop curriculum for counseling and social work, but my background is in business and education. So I'm like, oh yeah,
Mhm.
I don't know enough about counseling to know that. So it's what's nice about instructional design
Mhm.
is that we don't have to know all of that, which actually is a good thing because then if I was to know everything about counseling, then I would not be asking the hard questions or the right questions of the subject matter experts, which is usually the faculty, and asking them, what do learners need to know in this course? What are some of the important aspects that are going to carry them into the field? So,
Mhm.
if they're a career changer and say they are, in education and they want to be a counselor, that's a whole new field, right? And they have to be able
Yeah.
to learn that. And so, for the programs that I help create and the courses that I help create for the college, a lot of it is leading to licensure. So it's one of those things where it's like, wow, these are big types of programs and courses because they're going to be helping other people and
Right.
impacting other people's lives. So
Mm.
it's big. It's like with nursing too. And so it almost it's like we it's good if we're a novice when it comes to the content, because then if we become the expert, then yeah, we stop asking those questions. And so I think it's good to have, but of course, over the last 11 and a half years that I've been doing this and I've been working on counseling courses, I've built relationships with the subject matter experts. I've worked with
Yeah.
some of them over the course of that time. And so we've built that relationship. And so a lot of what I do is relationship building with those stakeholders at the
Yeah.
college and with the subject matter experts. And I've learned a lot about counseling. So it's been
Yeah.
really interesting because now I know, okay, this is what we have, and we've done this in other courses. Is this what you're talking about? So I can kind of, get the gist of what they're talking about, but it allows me to know enough to dig deeper and ask those
Right.
questions. So yeah, so it's good to know some of the content, and I would say to all those that are looking to aspire to be instructional designers, or maybe they're novices, to
Hmm.
before you get into a project, do a little bit of research and find out a little bit about that field that you're going to be helping to
Hmm.
design and develop. So that way you at least have some basic knowledge of it and an understanding of it. So, but yeah, it's always good to have a little bit of that novice type of mindset as well.
Yeah. Okay. Now, this is not something that I plan to ask, but if somebody had to become an instructional designer, how would they become one? What path did you take?
Yeah. So what's interesting about instructional design is depending upon what industry you go into. Like for example, if you're going to be an instructional designer in K through 12 versus higher education or corporate, you
Yeah.
if you start looking for jobs, you can even go out in like LinkedIn jobs and Indeed and things like that, and you can start looking. So I would say for those that are looking to do that, think about what area you want to go into. Is it K through 12? Is it higher education, corporate, government, and then just or nonprofit? Because you can really step into the role in any industry. And then once you figure out where you want to go, then you can figure out what are the requirements, what
Hmm.
software do I need to know, or what is the position going to require me to know, and then do they
Okay.
want education, formal education on top of that. Sometimes they may just want you to have a certificate program and be able to just
Okay.
take a few classes, learn about models and theories, and learn about multimedia and those main type of
Okay.
things. But then some of them want you to have a master's degree or a bachelor's degree. So just kind of see, where your education is currently, and do you need to go back to school and earn, another degree or something like that. So being able to plan it out and kind of have, this is one thing that my students do in a class that I
Mm.
teach, is they have to put together a 1, 3, and 5 year plan, and they have to kind of
Okay.
plan out what they're going to do. So I would say even before going into a program, just kind of maybe make that plan and see what do I want to accomplish,
Hmm.
going into this field, because that's something I think is always good to kind of have that foresight, right, and see where you want to go and what's going to take to get there,
Yeah.
and that way you can have that clear path. And if you don't know what your 5 year plan is going to be, that's okay. Just take notice and things, and it can always change. That's the great thing about plans, is they can change and they can evolve and
Yeah.
shift. So yeah, yeah,
So, just based on my understanding, right? Design as a field, right? You, I mean, if you're taking up a project of design for somebody, right? And as a designer, you could be taking the project for multiple different types of people, and not necessarily all of them will be the same, and they will not be coming from the same industry or the same domain, right? So,
right,
what kind of mindset have you developed, or is it like, I mean, as you mentioned, right, that novice kind of a little bit of a novice, but then you also have to do some background research about what the industry is like. But then,
right.
if there are certain soft skills that you need to have to become a good designer or a good instructional designer, um, I don't know if you had to mention the top three, what would they be?
Oh, yes, that's good. I would say top three, no certain order, but things that I utilize every day. I would say project management is a big one because what I do every day is I help manage the programs. I do more of that 10,000 foot view. And then once the program is all done and we have all the groundwork laid, then I hand off the courses to my curriculum developer. My curriculum developer becomes the project manager, but I'm there as a support. So
Yeah.
being able to project management's key. I would say collaboration is another one, and organization are three three of the soft skills that you need, because if you're not well organized in your
Mhm.
work, because many times I'm juggling multiple projects right now. So
Mhm.
I'm trying to finish up two new programs, and I'm trying to finish up a revision for a program, and I'm also starting up a brand new doctorate program. So I'm trying
Okay.
to, and they're all at different phases. So being able to
Yeah.
stay organized is really key. And plus, with the course development, I have tasks within those that I have to complete at certain points in time, where I have to do my review as an instructional designer and
Yeah.
do that quality check to make sure everything is good to go before the course gets published. So
Yeah.
so it's really important. And then I also participate in professional development and help facilitate professional development in my department. So yeah, so organization is a big one for sure. But yeah, communication,
Mhm.
definitely good communication skills. So yeah, I would say those are the top three: project management, collaboration, and communication are the top three. Yeah.
Okay. Now, since you mentioned you've got a podcast for your students, which has now grown to more than just your students, right? So I want to
Right.
ask, I mean, LinkedIn joined into the conversation based on just asking, right? So the audience that you cater to, right? It- how has it grown, right? You said that you started your podcast with the intention of making it for your ex-students or just new students, right? But now,
Right.
what is the new audience that you're seeing that is coming in to know more about instructional design, to be very specific?
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Yeah, so initially the podcast was started as a labor of love for my students, because they go to school online and it's all asynchronous, which means we don't meet at a time at the
Hmm.
same time. Where it's not like going to a ground class where you meet in
Yeah.
person. So it's all online, it's all asynchronous. And so giving them that opportunity to have some of that experience that they wouldn't normally get, like having guest speakers come in and talk in front of the class and things like that. I wanted to kind of give them something a little bit unique, but then make it in a medium to
Mm.
where they could listen to it while they were at work or at the gym or driving to work or something like that, right? Make
Yeah.
it short, bite size. So that's when the idea of the podcast came along. And it was like you said, and my initial thought was just making it for my students that are in the program, and having students that had just graduated from the program come on as guests on my podcast
Mhm.
and talk about their experience and what it was like for them and what they learned along the way, because then that could help students coming up behind them
Yeah.
with that. And then I also wanted to have experts come on that are in the field and give some tips and advice to them as well, to kind of help them along the way and let them know you're not alone in the process. But what I noticed along the way is, as I started doing this, I was like, I think there's more people than just my students listening, because I started noticing people around the world were listening to it. And I'm like, okay, I don't have students that are in Germany taking my classes. So there has to be something behind that. So it's
Yeah.
really interesting. And then I joined Podmatch back in May as a host, and it just exploded from there. And all of a
Right.
sudden, my reach ended up expanding, and I had individuals outside of Podmatch contacting me, and I had people inside Podmatch that were like, "Hey, I want to be a guest on your show. Your show sounds interesting." And it just grew from there. And now I have people on LinkedIn reaching out to me saying, "Hey, I'm listening to your podcast and I really love it." And I'm like, "Great!" And they're in the area, in the industry, so I
Mm.
always welcome them to come on the show and share their insights. And so, yeah, so I try to leave it like an open door and be like,
Mm.
yeah, come on in. Let's talk about different things that are in education. And it doesn't have
Mhm.
to necessarily always be instructional design, but it can be just education as a field, and as a, so I try to keep it the the net as wide enough as possible without making it too wide to where I'm going to lose my audience. So it's a balance, right? For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
So, if you had to put some parameters, right, as a podcast host, what are the things that you look for I mean, obviously, there are a lot of people sending out messages to you, say, we want to join your podcast, but then everybody
Right.
has ulterior motives. We want to, uh, something like that. So, what are the things that you filter for when you look for a guest? I don't know why I'm asking this question, but it just feels like,
Yeah, it feels natural, right? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So what I look for is that common thread that something that the guests can provide a value that I know that my listeners will be able to apply, walk away with,
Mm-hmm.
because I want it to be practical, actionable for them, and not just something where they're listening to it, but they can go, "Oh, yeah, that that's something I haven't tried before, or I haven't considered that before." So I want them to really get that aha moment, and go, "Oh, yeah, that I haven't considered that before," or something like that, or I can try that. That's a great tip. And so, yeah, I try to make sure that I have people that may not be well known, but then also, I've had some people that are more well known. Like I had Connie Malamed. She's the founder of the e-learning coach and mastering instructional design. And I had her on my podcast, and she's known in the industry of instructional
Okay.
design. And so that was really fun to have her on. And I'm like, wow, this is a treat. And she has her own podcast as well.
Good.
So who knows, maybe I'll get to go on her podcast, but it was really fun. And it opened up the door for that collaboration between us. And
Yeah.
now in early December, she wants me to be a speaker in her Mastering Instructional Design course that she's
Okay.
going to offer to people. So I'm going to be able to speak about the industry and about some different models and theories. So it really has opened up the door for those connections and those relationships that is really nice to expand that out and get the word out there, right? So it's really great. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, social media or just the internet has this capability to bring connections from anywhere out of the blue, and then you're sitting there like, how did this even happen? Or what fell in place that I got to know this person in person, right? That kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah.
on LinkedIn or on social media, how are you promoting your podcast? What are some things that you would like to share? Any lessons when it comes to?
Yeah, to be able to share that, that's great. Yeah, because my YouTube channel, what's interesting is in less than 30 days, my YouTube channel has just exploded. Like
Mhm.
the SEO is I've been able to improve that. I worked with someone.
Mhm.
He's in India, and I was able to work with him, and he helped me on the back end of my YouTube channel. So it went from 7 subscribers before he started helping me. Now I have over 800 subscribers in a month's time. I mean, it's
Uh-huh.
just amazing. So, and I have more views now. So what
Yeah.
I've been doing is I've been leveraging YouTube and I've been leveraging LinkedIn. So what I do is I take the content. So I use Riverside to record my episodes, and what's nice is that they have this available. It's basically uses AI technology, but what it does is it takes my recording and it takes those really nice segmented moments of that, and it
Yeah.
creates what they call magic segments
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So I take those magic segments, which are anywhere between 45 and 60 seconds, just little
Mhm.
bite-sized, content. And then it has also magic segments, which are a little bit longer. They're about 3.5 to 4 minutes. And I
Yeah.
take those and I don't really edit them. I just keep them natural as they are. But then I
Yeah.
post them to my YouTube channel, and then I take a bonus segment, which is usually that one of those 4-minute episodes, and I promote it on LinkedIn. So what I do is I have a weekly kind of digest per se, and it's a post that I put on LinkedIn and Buy Me a Coffee, and it says this week on Designing with Love. So it has like the podcast episode that just came out and the one that's going to come out later in the week. So I posted on Sunday, so it
Okay.
it has that episode that just came out, and then it has what's coming up next on Wednesday, because I release on Sundays and Wednesdays, and then
Okay.
then it has in other news. So it has like news that's, so people can kind of stay up to date on what's
Yeah.
going on with the podcast. Yeah. And then I do a call to action. So in that graphic, it has all the information in it. And the call to action is something new each week. Like, for example, this week it was, comment about something new you tried this week or something like that.
Yeah.
Anything that can really spark that conversation and get them to collaborate together.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I do. And then after every podcast interview I do, I actually go right to LinkedIn and I talk about being able to have that guest on the show. And I talk about just a little bit about what we talked about. I have a graphic that I attach to it, and then I take that little bonus episode and I link out to that, so they can get a little bit of a sneak peek of what's to come. And I
Yeah.
get a lot of engagement on that, so it's really nice. And I have to give a shout out to Podmatch too, because Alex actually recommended Podpage for having your website. So I actually did that. I switched over to Podpage, and Podpage has different automated tasks in place. So it actually, when my episode comes out, it'll post it on LinkedIn for me automatically and say new episode. And I don't have to do anything. So
Yeah.
I do some of the stuff manually, but a lot of it's automated. So it's
Yeah.
nice to have that combination of the manual and the automated, so I can
Mhm.
engage and get those post impressions. So it's really
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, a lot of insight over there about how to grow your
Yeah.
podcast. So I'll
Right.
probably take a leaf out of that.
Yes.
So definitely I should be doing that because yeah, my podcast needs a little boost per se.
A little boost.
But
Yeah.
okay, nah, never mind that. But okay, from your experience, so how's it going? What are you writing about? The book that you mentioned.
Yeah, so the book, it's based on one of my most popular solo podcasts. So initially
Okay.
it was the top 10 instructional design models and theories, just to
Hmm.
kind of help. It's a whole series that I did. So I started with the
Okay.
top 10, and then I did a solo episode, and I started with 10. But then what I realized is that I actually need to expand this out and do a little bit more than 10. So I started, this whole series, and I did all these solo episodes, and
Hmm.
not all of them have been released yet, but they're almost there. And I kept having people say to me, Jackie, you need to write this down, or why don't you, maybe you should write a book about this. And I kept hearing this over and over again. And I'm like, maybe I do need to do that.
Hmm.
And then I saw a post. I use Buzzsprout for my hosting platform because it's my podcast is audio only. And they do a monthly newsletter that they send out. And
Okay.
that particular month, it said ways to monetize your podcast. And it had
Okay.
all these different ways to do it. And it said like Patreon, buy me a coffee, and all this stuff. And I was like, ooh, maybe I should try that. So, but then one of the ways was to write a book. And I was like, okay, I'm hearing this and now I'm reading about it. So
Yeah.
maybe I need to take that leap. So I already had the content. It was just, I didn't want to mirror it after the podcast because I
Yeah.
want readers to get something different. So I just basically took each of those areas that I had done the podcast episodes on, and I
Uh-huh.
thought, okay, I can create a chapter for that one. And I just built it out, and the rest is history. Yeah. So it's almost done. I'm just kind of going through and just
Mhm.
kind of doing another round through of it, but it's 20 chapters. So it starts off with the different models and tools, like a overview chapter, and then each chapter, the 18 chapters are each of the different well-known models and theories. It goes into the more
Okay.
well-known ones, to help you start off, like ADDIE and the SAM model, which are well-known models in instructional design, and
Mhm.
then it progresses into the more complex ones. And
Mhm.
so it really takes readers on that journey. But the nice thing about the book is that anyone can pick it up and just pick up what they need. They don't have to go from beginning to end. So you can, if you're, struggling as an instructional designer in a certain area, you can be like, I want to learn more about adult learning theory and all these different adult learning tools. Well, you can just start there, so you don't have to really necessarily, it's not chronological. You don't have to, go from the beginning. So you can take it in bits and pieces and get what you need out of it. And So it's really nice. And there's reflection activities at the end of each chapter, which you don't get in the podcast. So yeah. So the nice thing is it goes from the basic models and theories to kind of help someone that's new, and then it goes into the more complex. So as they get more
Yeah.
comfortable, they can pick that up. But what's nice is that they can pick up the book at any point at any
Yeah.
chapter and just get what they need out of it. So you don't have to read it all in one sitting. You can kind of yeah. So in the book itself, at the beginning, I have a part in there before they get into the first chapter, where it talks about what's the purpose of the book and kind of how can you make the most out of it. So it gives them kind of that overview of like you don't have to read each chapter. You can pick it up wherever you need to, and then get what you need out of it. Come back to it later. So hopefully that will be a practical tool for a lot of people out there that are looking to go into instructional design or maybe new to it,
Hmm.
or maybe even those that have been like me. I've been in it for 15 years and I still learn new things every day from my students and from my
Yeah.
colleagues. So it's a field that's always evolving and growing. So it's exciting. I like it. Yeah.
Okay, now just a random question. I know like it's random,
Sure.
but then again, if so, since you've been in the industry of instructional design for 15 years, if you had to attract people into your industry, right? You have one statement to make that why should they be becoming instructional designers? What would that be?
Ooh, I would say think of design as an art and a science. So it combines both the art, the creative side, and the science because it has the evidence based
Mhm.
part of it. So I would say for those that are interested in the art and the science of learning, that would be yeah, that would be my way to kind of bring them into the fold and say, come on in. It's a exciting industry because you get to do a little, you get to still keep your creativity. You know, for those that love to be creative, you still have yeah, you have that opportunity to be creative, but then you also have that ability to look at data and analyze that. And so, for those that love the science and the data analysis,
Mhm.
and they geek out on spreadsheets, and they love that. You still have you definitely get to do that because you get to evaluate metrics and learning and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So it's really nice because it combines so many different areas. It combines psychology and yeah, and just how people learn and the science behind it. So yeah, it's a very broad field, and that's why I think it works across industries. And it's been around since the 1940. Well, it's been around since World War II. So
Yeah.
it's great. It's stood the test of time, and yeah, so it's really great. I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. So
Of
it's
course
just, if
not.
anything, it's going to grow.
As long
Yeah.
as we have universities, as long as we have students going out and trying to learn something, we will be having instructional design. So
Right.
thank you so much, Jackie. Thank you so much for joining me in on this episode of Yollab Central. Before we close, where can people get in touch with you and know more about you?
Yes, great. So we talked about LinkedIn, so they can reach out to me through LinkedIn, so they can just look up my name and connect with me there. I do get connection requests quite often, but I'm on LinkedIn every day. So if you connect with me on there, I'll accept your request and we can get connected there. They can also find me on Buy Me a Coffee. They can just search Designing with Love if they want to support the work. And then my YouTube channel is at Designing with Love. So it's the same as the podcast name. And then my website is Designing with Love blog. So just the blog at the end. But that website has all the blog posts and the episodes on there too.
Okay, thank you so much, Jackie. I mean, this was an amazing episode. This is something new because I got to know about what instructional design is, and then I'm sure the audience will also get to know a lot about this field. And thank you so much for sharing those podcast uh, tips and tricks, so that I will also work on them for sure. To the
Yeah, absolutely.
to the audience who's been watching and listening, don't forget to leave a like if you like what we talked about. The comment section is open for questions, suggestions, perspectives, and anything else if you want to add. And don't forget to subscribe before you close the window itself. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you so much, Jackie.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm glad to be on Yollab Central and I look forward to possibly being on again soon.
For sure. One last question before I close. So just wanted to understand your perspective. So, if there's a platform which is for influencers or content creators and brands to come together and collaborate, right? What would you think about that based on your experience in business and as a content creator?
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea. Anytime that we can network and collaborate across industries, I think that that's really helpful because I think we can learn so much from, like I can learn from someone maybe in the business industry or in K through 12 and learn those different tips and tricks. So I think it's helpful to have that. Like for example, my students they come from diverse backgrounds, they have
Right.
diverse experiences, and I learned something new from them too. So it's not just me teaching them,
Yeah.
but they're helping me as well. They're helping to expand my toolbox and my toolkit. So yeah, anytime we can do that and network and find those opportunities to connect with each other, I think that helps, especially now with the digital age becoming more predominant, with AI becoming, something that is on everybody's minds. It's like we need that human connection now more than ever. So yeah, so I think that that's really important to have that, even if it's just digital meetups or something.
Yeah.
Having those spaces where you can connect with each other is so important to keep that human connection. Yeah,
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jackie. Thanks for joining in. Good
I
day.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.